All right, welcome everybody. This is Pete from Current Wave. We're going to be getting started in just a minute or two. We're letting people into the webinar as we speak, so please stand by and we will get started in just a few minutes. Welcome everybody who's joining up. We are going to get started in just a few minutes. All right, we're just about ready to get started. So, hello everybody. I am Pete Lunenfeld from Current Wave, and my awesome guest today is none other than Chris Moss from Volt Credit Union. You guys are in for a treat today. We're going to talk all things knowledge management, AI, and credit unions, and no one is better suited for this conversation than the one and only Chris Moss. So, Chris, welcome.
Wow, that was a big sell, Pete. I hope I hold my weight.
I have no doubt. Well, let's jump into it for everybody. Let's just start with the basics. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to be a CEO? And tell us the Volt story.
Yeah, so I came to banking as a banker. Gosh, I don't know, almost 20 years ago now. I started with a bank in Oklahoma as an in-store branch. Kind of learned to love it at that time. Grew from there, and I was recruited to the credit union world in 2012. And I will never go back to banking, so I'm glad I'm with credit unions. Um, I spent a lot of time learning the industry. Banking is different, or credit unions are different than banks in a lot of different ways. We all wear a lot of hats. I'm at a small credit union. I was at a small credit union. So one day it might be working IT, but the next day it might be doing loans. So really learning the full gambit at my first credit union. I joined Volt almost 2.5 years ago. Moved across state lines, so I'm in Missouri now, and I love it. Volt is all about powering our potential, powering our members' potentials, and growing them in the shoes that they stand in. So yeah, kind of quick version.
Yeah, that works. Um, so we're talking about AI. It's a ginormous subject, right? It's really easy to. I deal with this as a guy who owns an AI company. I always have to like say, well, wait, it's not all of AI, right? Like it's just a little snippet. But when, we first met a little while ago, I guess it's still the Wild West with AI, but it was even more so back then. When we met, what was in your head as to what AI might do, what it might solve? Like what problems were you after to tackle?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, you guys kind of landed in my lap at an opportune time. We were looking to solve some problems, and it was already in my radar. It was in the back of my head. And whenever we met, I instantly made that connection. Just you and your team, but you and the product as well. As far as what we thought AI would help us with, we were in that initial learning stage, as so many of us are still, trying to figure out how we could use it, where it could be used, and what impacts it might have on our industry and affecting our members as a whole. We went into it with the thought that we want to protect our data as much as possible. We don't want member data. We don't want our policies and procedures getting out. It's definitely helpful for us to have access to this technology, but who is going to be able to see that? We've kind of gone through the ropes with you, and we have it available on our website as well for members and non-members with the widget or the chat bot. And we were really concerned on how that data was going to be cross mingled. Are there separate buckets or things like that? So, in working with your team, we definitely have a great understanding of how our information is out there. You were kind of our first foray into AI. We've grown a lot since you and I first met. We have a lot of AI that we use day to day in different avenues, and we're growing that today. As we look for projects and plans into 26 and 27, AI is a focus of a lot of different things, a lot of different conversations that we're having internally.
Yeah, isn't it wild? Like I think back even a year ago where I would meet a CEO like yourself and I'll share with you this was just kind of funny because the this CEO I was talking to, it was so typical. She's like, "Hey, I love what you guys are selling, but like the last thing I need is for your AI to like take over my credit union." And I'm
Yeah,
like, "Oh gosh." I said, "First, don't worry. I wish we could do that, right? But we cannot, right?"
yeah.
But the sentiment is the correct one, right? You
Sure,
guys are stewards of some really crucial, important information for your members. And it's important for everyone to know that AI is still just software, right? And the kind of controls you would put in to any software you install at the credit union, those thinking processes for, where to draw the boundaries of what something can touch and not touch aren't really different for AI than you would for any other piece of software that you
sure.
install. For us, just for those of listening, for Current Wave, we don't install anything at the credit union, right? We only use what the credit union feeds us. So, you know, maybe for the other CEOs out there, Chris, kind of how did you think about how to implement what you fed Current Wave versus, what do you think about being like the third rail you can't touch versus what's safe?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely baby stepped it at first. We started with just the internal documents, and we really gauged how the team perceived the information. Every step of the way, I think, as far as rollout for us, we had different tiers of employees involved. So we kind of opened the gates slowly, but we wanted to make sure that everyone was involved. But as far as what information we put into the system, we were slow. We had probably a trickle at first, and we tested it. We saw how it was working, how it was responding, and I'll tell you now, um, there's not much we don't have in the system whenever it comes to our policies and procedures. All of it's closed loop. So, we were concerned, like I said a minute ago, we were concerned that if we put something out there and we had the public facing side as well, our members or our fraudsters going to somehow ask a question that they learn how to finagle the system and get around the blocks that we have in place. And that's not something we found. We've found quite the opposite of that, actually, that everything is super locked down. Um, we're getting good feedback. As we see the questions come in, our team is really responsive. We don't have a large team. We have 22 employees at a small credit union. So reviewing the questions, we've put a huge focus on that so that we have the right data out there. And we saw in the beginning, members were asking questions that we didn't have on our website. And that was an eye-opening experience for our marketing team to say, hey, we need to add this to the website, which then feeds Current Wave. So our members are able to ask those questions and get a really quick answer. Most of our questions are answered within 2 or 3 seconds. So it's much faster than someone picking up the phone, calling in, and waiting. Sometimes there's a wait on the phones. We hate to say it, but sometimes they have to wait. But then also our employee might have to look up the answer. We've got a lot of data at our fingertips. We can't memorize every policy and every step, for everything that we do.
Yeah, that's so true. Uh, for those listening, we on the Current Wave side, everything we do is we call it segregated and secure. So, like in Chris's example with Volt, Volt has a repository of information they feed the AI that is internal only, meaning only the employees can see. And we have a separate knowledge base of stuff that's member facing that the members can see. Most of it is driven right off Volt's own website, right? So not even that much is created new. And this is something that's kind of just good hygiene, whether it's AI or not, is to make those knowledge bases physically separate. Like you can't jump, like I use the word finagle, the very technical term. Um, we all worry about, well, what if the AI can get from point A to point B and leak information, member info, for example. And it just can't be done if you don't commingle them at all. If they're literally in separate locked rooms, or a better analogy is in separate houses in different neighborhoods. You just can't get from one room to the other. And that's something I think all leaders, credit unions or otherwise, need to think about with their own data hygiene or with vendors like Current Wave. And so that kind of brings me to another question. Because of these risks, even though I think they're very well understood, and vendors like us, Current Wave, we built this in from the ground up to set leaders' minds at ease about data privacy and data security. You still have to convince a board,
Yeah.
right? You still have to convince the leadership in your own team that I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Can you tell us a little about how you navigated that in your
Yeah.
world?
Sure, yeah. I mean, you mentioned earlier it's kind of the Wild West. It still is the Wild West in a lot of ways. Um, we had a lot of reservations in partnering with any version of AI. We use it for social media posts where we kind of we wordsmith a post or something along those lines, and we did that before. But as we talk about, you just mentioned member data, and I've been talking about policies and procedures. You want to be careful what information is out there, and we were very intentional in conveying to our executive team and our board of directors that the data isn't there. Our core system isn't touching either platform. There's no risk of PII because we're not even connecting it to our share drive. So, a lot of us in smaller organizations have share drives where all this data is populated in folders within folders and folders, and that's one of the reasons that we partnered with Current Wave is to alleviate that structure. But we're not directly connecting to those folders. We are manually choosing what we want to make available, whether that's on the internal side or the external side. The other piece that is also kind of helpful is you talked about commingling data. Um, we've opted to segregate some of the data even internally so that different departments have different access to information. Our accounting team, for example, does different things, month-end closing and processing of files that tellers don't need to have access to. It doesn't hurt them to have access to it, but there's no reason that if a teller is searching for how to post um, a debit or credit to someone's account that is maybe a manual fee or an entry, they shouldn't see the accounting entry because that's generally opposite of what the teller is going to do. So if they see those transaction data uh, information, that actually might cause more problem. So we've segregated those departments. IT has their own bucket because they may have some policies and procedures that may not be applicable to everyone. So it's not just from the member side or public side. We're able to break out that information to help a specific department, which also I think in our experience has increased or lowered the response time. So the question gets answered a lot quicker. You have less documents or resources that you're having to review to say, is this the right answer or the wrong answer? So it's really expediting the responses.
I think that's such a good nuance. I think when we talk to customers, uh, everyone's first order of business is the security and privacy, which makes sense, right?
Yeah.
There's stuff the outside world can't see, and there's stuff that even inside your org, you know, you used IT as a good example. Maybe IT has some policies and permissions policies and procedures that are private to the IT team, right? They just shouldn't be shared even with other employees. HR is another really good example of that. But where it really gets interesting, to your point, once you get past that, which is kind of table stakes, it's the fact that if a teller says, how do I do a wire transfer? If they accidentally get how the deposit ops team does wire transfers, it's the wrong answer,
Yeah.
right? Which is really interesting. And we've watched with you and our other customers that being able to segregate because of use case is interestingly as important as privacy and security, which is weird, right? That's not
Yeah.
obvious. Well,
No, and it's thinking of like
oh
that
yeah,
accounting side where those entries are truly the opposite, where if that is available, it really does cause a problem for the member and the rest of the team that has to go back and find the issue. Why, how did this happen? Where is this money actually going? So it really does alleviate because our old system, you could just as easily pull up the wrong policy and do that same error.
right. We're often comparing the AI world of retrieving knowledge,
Yeah.
right, from the old school, and by old school I mean like 2025, right? Which was, hey, finding that document in the share drive or in SharePoint or whatever flavor you pick, and how easy it is for people to land on the wrong page in the wrong document and
Yeah.
get the wrong answer. Um,
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that also kind of touches on another point, which is a factor that a lot of us, my previous shop and this credit union face. If you have a share drive and you have a teller or a call center employee that is frequently retrieving the same document, they're going to make shortcuts for themselves and save that document to their desktop. The issue that we had, and what came to mind whenever you and I had our first conversation, I had a call center employee who I make the rounds every morning, kind of check in, and she had a 3-inch binder that she had printed all of the policies and procedures. And she was on a call and she was referencing that. And I was like, what are you doing? And she actually was referencing a policy that we had within the last 6 months updated. And I pointed out to her that it was not current anymore. And, you know, those documents that are saved on desktops or in folders, your employees might be giving the wrong information because they don't have access to the most current information. They're trying to expedite the call. We all want to have a quick turnover if someone's calling in. We don't want to have 30-minute phone calls. But if they're having to search through folders and folders, or worst case is printed paper, that's taking time away from helping the next member or doing something else that could improve, our overall member experience.
And isn't it ironic? I mean, the your most diligent employee is the one that's going to step in that trap the most,
Yeah.
right? And gosh, we see this a lot. A lot of folks come to Current Wave for speed, right? Hey, it's just too slow for my people to find what they need when they need it. But really, where we kind of win is the consistency game, right? How many branches over time drift into doing the same thing two different ways between two different branches, right? So that's one thing. So let's kind of fold it back to Volt. When we met, what was the knowledge problem that you sought to solve? And once you kind of went through the journey of using us and AI, what do you think were the big wins?
Yeah, so again, I'll just reference that call center employee. She was spending time looking at outdated policies. We knew that that was an issue globally for our credit union. We had talked about it before. We have two different databases that we were keeping policies and procedures in. So we had our share drive, which is folders on folders on folders, and we also had a system in our intranet called Kbase where you could, very similar concept where you go to a department folder and kind of break it down. So there was actually discrepancies between those two systems. Whenever I started in late 23, early 24, we had talked about updating the K-based system and removing all the old policies and centralizing it that way. And that was an undertaking. Someone's got to go in and review the policies, see if they're current. Um, there's stuff out there that, it might be in this department's folder, but it's not something they really manage. So it was one of those projects that we knew we needed to do. We just couldn't devote the time to do it. We had a committee of 3 or 4 employees that were tasked to actually volunteered because they wanted to improve it, and they just couldn't quite get on the same page of organizing that. So for us, it was really just seeing we'd already recognized the need for improvement. We had tried and tried and tried to do that improvement without success. We saw your product at a conference, at a small credit union conference, and kind of started the ball rolling there. Um, it was as far as I think part of the question was rollout, we did it in baby steps. We tested it with lots of different groups within our organization. We had everyone ask questions to see, can you stump it? And if they did, we fixed it. We added the policy. We're still doing that today. The common question now is, we had a lending meeting this morning, and they were talking about calculating someone's income on a tax return. And the initial conversation was, I'm going to email this document out to you so you know how to calculate it the correct way. And it was immediately followed up by someone else on the team saying, is that in current wave? I almost said that we have a nickname for it. We customized current wave in every way possible. We actually call it Ask Moxie. Our mascot is Moxie. So the very first
By the
question
way,
was
may I add, world famous mascot, Moxie.
she's well traveled. But yeah, so it was really, it kind of gave me a warm fuzzy whenever after that email comment came out that the very first question came from one of our employees was, is that an Ask Moxie? So they're all looking to it. They know that's the one-stop resource for information now.
Which is the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's what all of us in management want is to one throat to choke,
Yeah.
one place to look. That's huge. So what would you say were the big benefits when, I mean, first let me say no organization is ever done with knowledge management. I
Yeah.
wish it was one of those things, hey, roll out this software, you're you're done. But it's not how knowledge management works, right? You're always adding new products. You're
True.
always changing procedures. With that, whether you want it or not, regulations are changing around you, right?
Yeah.
Congratulations, right? So what do you think your big wins were as it
Big,
goes?
yeah, big wins. I'll go two different directions. First direction, speed to answer. Our employees on the phones or even online, we have a chat function within our online banking where members can ask questions. Either way, they're getting answers quicker. Our employees are able to access those answers quicker. We had a compliment earlier this week that a member was looking for a copy of a check and they messaged in and they got a response within 3 minutes. That's great. We want those kind of comments. The flip side of that, which is not where a lot of people think of, is the department response. This is whenever we decided to move forward, whenever the management team decided to move forward with current wave, there's a couple departments that it impacted, accounting and IT. So there wasn't a big lift on either part. Our accounting, we're a small credit union. Our accounting department doesn't love new expenses. Um, they tend to frown whenever we add something. And then our IT department has a heavy lift with other projects. They don't want to roll something else out that is going to take time away from other projects. Both of those departments, after we rolled this out and they kind of had their own little nook to play in, their own little sandbox to play in, both commented within weeks of us going live how amazing the product was. Accounting referenced it because we were able to upload policies and procedures again for them. We actually tried to upload the Nacha handbook, which is about 2 inches thick for ACH, like how to do different things. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get a digital copy of that to upload it. So
Uh,
unless I go in and scan each page, we can't get it. But they were really excited to have access to the different data points. IT is another really good example. We had an exam not long after we launched this, and the examiner asked a question that was very specific, and our director of IT didn't know the answer. He's like, I don't know where this is at. He put it in Ask Moxie, and within 5 seconds, he had an answer. He copy and pasted it, sent it to the examiner, and the examiner was thrilled with the response. IT quickly became thrilled with the product because that saved them, however long it took to search for the answer because it was buried within a policy, you know, in a folder somewhere else. So both departments that generally don't like new things loved rolling out Current Wave.
isn't that something we see this a lot. We all wake up in the morning to make our members happy, right? Um, but it's surprising how much it counts to make our employees happy too, right?
Yeah,
And people like looking smart, right?
yeah, yeah, for
Nobody
sure.
likes looking dumb, but everybody likes looking smart. That's super cool. Well, What do you think of the analytical part? So, most folks, when they think about this quick retrieval thing,
Mm.
it's a no-brainer, right? Oh, it used to take me 5 minutes to find something. Now it takes 5 seconds. Win. But you mentioned this a little bit before that what we can do is because we're tracking every question and answer that comes through, either for an employee or a member, you as the CEO have this bird's eye view of all this activity. Do you get some intelligence out of that you can use?
Oh, for sure, yeah. Our marketing team is very active with our website. I mentioned that you were our first foray into AI. Our website is our second foray into AI. But our marketing team monitors those member questions regularly. They're seeing the questions, they're helping answer the questions, they're adding it to the website if need be. But again, we're seeing those questions as they come in from an employee or from our member, and we're able to track what questions are being asked, obviously, how often the questions are being asked. And if we identify, and that's something we haven't talked about, you guys are great about sending us a weekly follow up to say, here's a synopsis of the questions that were asked the previous week, who asked the most questions. We have access to that also on demand, but we can look at that and say, I've got, two-thirds of my employees asking about loans, or maybe it's an RV loan because we just started doing an RV promotion. We maybe need to do a refresh on this specific product so that they're aware of what everything is. So it helps us identify issues much quicker. Back in the old days, as you say, last year, it would have taken weeks for that to kind of make its way up to say, hey, I don't know what this product is. At that point, you've already had dozens of members call in and ask questions that our staff are having trouble answering. So we're able to identify problems a lot quicker, again, on the employee side, but also on the member side. Um, if we need to maybe do a blog post or an email or whatever it may be to get more information in front of our members' eyes that helps them with their day-to-day transactions.
Isn't that funny? I think the unintended side effect of these AI tools isn't finding out what you know, it's finding out what you didn't know you didn't have.
Exactly. And it sounds like you're creating more work for yourself in monitoring those questions. We check it, whenever we have some downtime, if it's once a week, if it's every other day, however often we get in there. But ultimately, we see it as saving ourselves time down the road. If we can answer that public side, the chat bot, if we can answer that question, that saves the members' time and our time, because they're not having to call in and go through the call tree and sit on hold for however long it may be, and then for the employee to actually find the answer and give it to them. So we're really expediting everyone's time, and giving them a channel that is easily accessible 24/7. You know, we have to be open for the member to be able to call us. And we close like normal institutions about 5 o'clock, 5:30 every day. So, or on the weekends, we're not open all day. So it gives our members access to information that they wouldn't have access to otherwise.
It's a big deal. I had a example that was like really obvious. That what we do with the AI is we tell you what doesn't get answered. What do you not have content for? And one of the questions from one of the members it was another credit union, but it was people kept asking, do you have Zelle? And of course, everyone was saying we don't because they didn't offer Zelle. What got caught though by the CEO is we have alternatives to Zelle we weren't telling anyone about.
Sure.
So it's that kind of surface beyond just the obvious, no, the answer is no. Really, the answer is no, comma, but dot, 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 right? And it gives you that vision.
to, to take that to the next step, if the credit union didn't have something similar to Zelle, if you're getting that question over and over again, you're commingling those answers. You can see maybe that's a product or service that we need to investigate to see if it's something we should roll out. So,
Legit.
yeah,
Legit, right. Yeah, that ability to figure out what people want that may not just tell you is that's the insights. That's really what that's about.
yeah.
All right. So, knowing what you know now to your credit union brothers and sisters out there, what do you think they should know about this kind of endeavor?
I think if you haven't had a conversation about AI, I think you need to have the conversation internally. Reach out to your peers. Um, in 2026, most credit unions are using AI to some capacity, whether that's a Google search or a social media post. There's more of us that are using it than you think are using it. Ask around. Um, do your legwork. There's a lot of options out there. I will give you. This is not a paid advertisement. Current Wave has gone above and beyond when it comes to working with us. I think in the credit union industry, we're really used to having vendors that just kind of say, "Here's the product, take it or leave it." That has never been a conversation that we have had. We have a lot of ideas. We're a growing credit union. Um, we want to make things simple and easy, and your team has gone above and beyond any request we've had. You might tell me it's going to take a couple of weeks for you to roll it out. Sometimes it's there the next day. You guys go above and beyond. Definitely, research vendors, research your need. Um, think about what it is you're trying to improve. Talk to your staff. I'm sure they have complaints about where they're getting data from today, how they're accessing the documents. They're going to tell you they have a problem if you ask them.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Chris, it's been an awesome conversation. We value you so much as a customer. You're awesome to work with, and your team, and Moxie, world famous Moxie is the
Of
best. So, hey man, thank you so much for spending some
course.
of your valuable time with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right. See you, man.
Bye.
Bye.